okay, that's cool. I didn't know that. I
Oh.
haven't seen it in game yet.
Oh, it is? Oh, it is.
Yeah,
wow, this is what I mean.
yeah.
I'm not observant, Liz. I'm not here to observe.
It's totally fine.
Oh my goodness,
Oh
my
my
goodness.
God.
Okay.
So I was going through the questions because I had... Oop, my game just went all weird on me. Okay, so I had, something come up that I've been working on all weekend, and then I was like, oh shit, it's Sunday. I should look at the questions.
That's super okay.
I messaged Sparrow and I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be the most boring interview ever.
It's
What's
not.
your kid's name? Liz. Were they born in Red Acre? Did they move here? Born in Red Acre. What's their family like? I don't know.
That's such a mood.
Why is your kid in the blackout club? There aren't any other clubs that are up this late.
That's so funny though.
Like, I'm very much like a go with the flow role player, so like I don't figure out details about shit, even like important stuff, until it's important to like the now. So I was like, oh god, I actually have to sit and think about my kid now.
That's so okay.
So we're just gonna wing it. I did write down for some of it and figure out some of it, but I was just like, you know what? We'll see how it goes.
It's fine. Remember, I don't know is a perfectly fine answer. I love that answer.
What's your kid's name? I don't know.
Oh god, you're killing me. That hurt.
Oh my god. Like, oh, what are some of the other ones? Does your kid have any other notable voice relationships? No, I don't know. Oh, this is gonna be very interesting. We'll see how much I have to make up on the fly.
It is so okay. Just follow your heart.
That's apparently where my next name fragment is, in my heart. So.
Oh, that's concerning, actually.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard to close your eyes and have the flashlight on your chest and like see. So.
Sounds like a medical
glows,
condition.
Like ET, you know?
Just someone died inside of you. That's not okay. None of the implications.
I didn't even think of it in that context. Like, I always like think of them as like kind of like shadows on the wall, not like it almost like they it's like a reflection of the person, not necessarily like a piece of them.
Oh, that's fair. So... That makes more sense, actually. I never really thought through exactly what they were. I just kind of accepted.
It's super morbid, but I kind of think of it like the shadows from the atomic bomb.
Oh.
Yeah, like you
man.
can see the where the person was standing. It's not actually them, but it's like you can see where they were and all that. It's like super morbid, but that's always kind of what I related it to because it just seems to make sense.
Oh fuck!
Because it's kind of the same concept.
Yeah.
Like in the regards of like you see like a body outline of a dead person.
That makes sense to me and is also very uncomfortable. Oh no!
Sorry.
It's okay. It's not like it was
really dark, you know. It's a horror game.
It is. I was about to say it's not that it was ever meant to be comfortable. It's just that oh no.
Oh, did I just sign up for an uncomfortable interview? We could really make it awkward and uncomfortable.
That would be fun. Okay.
I'll just leave really long pauses before every single answer. So like even the simple ones like what is your kid's real name?
Just ... Oh no. Oh
Liz.
No. Wow. Christ.
I'm great at interviews. This is gonna be great.
All right. I guess let's get to it before we talk the night away. Not that I wouldn't mind talking the night away.
That's part of the process, right?
Probably. Oh man. Okay, so what is your kid? Hello. Fuck. Maybe I should start by introducing myself. I didn't really think this part through. Hi. I'm Cass.
Hello. Hi, Cass. I'm Liz.
Hi, Liz.
Nice to meet you.
It's so nice to meet you. As if we haven't spoken before, ever.
Yeah, never in my life.
Hello, kind stranger. Would you like to tell me what your kid's real name is?
Hello, kind stranger. Please give me all your kids' secrets. Like their real name. We'll find them.
Oh no!
Lucid hiding in the boxcar corner. No one right behind the mirror where it's dark and there's space, but no one ever looks behind there. There's just a Lucid waiting with a recorder.
You know, there's bad Lucid, but I think that's worse Lucid. Like, what's
worse?
that?
Well, so I guess it depends on. I mean, if any Lucid could find the boxcar, I feel like bad Lucid would be it.
It's true.
He would just stumble upon it. Like, what is this? Oh, this is quaint.
Bad Lucid stumbles upon the boxcar and then reports it to no one. He's just like, huh, man, I stubbed my toe on a boxcar today. Worst day ever.
Those boxcars, they just come out of nowhere.
Oh my god.
So my kid's real name is Liz. She doesn't have a code name because I didn't play her as a character until like 6 months into playing the game, and by then I was already known as Liz. So
That is entirely valid. Does Liz have a last name? It's okay if she doesn't.
She does not. She does not. I am very, very bad at getting into like my details that could tie me into like a specific point, and I feel like assigning a last name, if that last name appears at some point on a character we meet, suddenly she's related to this person she knows nothing about. No, I just never went with a last name for her. My stalker kid has a last name randomly, but like she doesn't. So,
oh man.
I do think that like if she were to create like a name to like a nickname to go by, it would probably be something like space related. Probably, I don't know exactly which one, but I've never thought of like giving her like a name to hide behind, so I do think that she would probably go something spacey and like a lot of letters in it. Probably it wouldn't be something simple like Orion or something like that. It would be one of those constellations that has like the entire alphabet in the name.
That's so fun though. Space is so fun. Why does your kid like space? I mean, it's valid to like space.
I don't know. She just always has.
That is fair.
I always have, so she always has.
That is completely fair and valid.
You will see a lot of trends in this because it took me so long to be like, oh, I could make this a character. There was a lot of, once I realized that, having to make separations from it just being me playing a game to me playing a kid in a game.
That is super fine.
So,
it's not like this game came with an
happens.
Instruction manual that was like, and now you will set up your character. Like,
it did. All it was, do you want us to listen to your mic or not?
Okay, you're right. You're right. Oh man,
By the way, can we record you when you don't know if anyone's listening? Thanks.
True.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool.
Let's go with it.
All right, then.
Yeah.
Does your kid have, like, specific family members that you've come up with for her, then? Or did you just kind of go, she's here. She's around.
It's changed a lot. Originally, I was like, you know what? It's a challenge. Play a character that's super close to who I am in real life and see what happens. I feel like I'm a seasoned enough role player to be able to not take things personally, whether it's a character that's closer to who I am or not. But then I found that really boring and didn't want to do that. So I come from a very large family, so I made sure that my character was an only child.
Totally fair.
So both of her parents are in Red Acre with her. She's an only child. Her parents are like workaholics to a degree. So it's a family of busy people with busy schedules who share a living space. She like very much cares about her parents. Her parents very much care about her. But they are just very independent people. Her parents trust her enough not to get into so much trouble that they have to step in.
I'm sorry, I'm just picturing this, like...
So they just kind of let her do her thing, and until she messes up to the point that they have to, like, pay attention, they're just cool with letting it roll how it rolls, kind of thing. Which is just very much how she approaches relationships as well. Just you trust that the person's going to do their thing and not get in too much trouble, and if they do, you deal with it when they do. So... it makes it very convenient for me as a role player not to have to worry about what my parents are doing. What they're going to try to do to stop me when I'm doing in Red Acre. So, yeah. So, like, it's just a very, like, independent, they treat her like an adult who knows what she's doing and let her do her thing. So.
Oh man,
Yeah.
do they know then? I'm guessing they don't even know that she's in the blackout club. They've just got no clue.
No.
It's like, oh, she'll be fine. Liz, minutes later, with like a crossbow.
Going out, Dad. Talk to you later.
Oh no.
Walks out with grappling hook in hand.
Something, be back by noon, honey. I don't know.
Right.
Oh man.
Curfew is midnight. You've got school tomorrow. Oh god, a midnight curfew with school. That'd be interesting. I definitely didn't have that growing up.
Me neither. All right.
But yeah, no, her parents are out of the house at night too, so there's no way to catch that she's not there.
That is fair.
And even if they did, I mean, all the kids are sleepwalking as well, so I would imagine even parents that, like, were lucid or something like that would, if their kid wasn't in bed, they'd be like, they're just out sleepwalking with the rest of the town. It's fine.
Makes sense to me. I'm assuming that
so
her parents definitely serve SAO then.
So I haven't gotten so far as to figure that out. I just kind of been running on the assumption without having to nail down any details that they're probably sleepers. It's never come up where it's been important to know what her parents are, how involved they are, and with which gods or whatever. So just run on the assumption they're sleepers. Very casual. Just take it as it goes.
That is super
Once
fair.
it's important to know, I'll figure it out. That's really how we go with this.
That is a very fair way to operate. All right, then.
I find that it's a lot easier to get your characters into a world if you don't figure out all the details before placing them in it. So I feel like it just leaves that sort of thing an open opportunity later to fit some sort of dramatic reveal if needed, or just that's just what they are sort of thing. It just helps to set it in the world more easily and, like, believably. So
Yeah, and I think that otherwise, I mean, some things could wind up forced, so I think that acting on the fly is perfectly valid. Let's see. What else do we got here? So why is your kid in the blackout club? Like, how did they get here? What's the story?
So she had a friend who was kind of woken up first and found the club. She doesn't know all the details of how they found the club, just that they basically, and then subsequently any other kid they helped wake up, we're trying to get as many kids into the club as possible because obviously we need help. So she was woken up by a friend who then kind of explained what they knew, which wasn't much. And they kind of worked to wake up other children. And just kind of like perpetuated from there. She does have like a very strong sense of obligation to do as much as possible in the chance that she's been given. Because it could be, well, one, you could end up in the song again anyway. You could die, whatever the case is. So she is very much in the club because she believes that together they can do more and make more of an impact. So she's more willing to do as much as possible with as many kids as possible for that reason. So they joined through a friend, stayed out of obligation. So
makes sense. A lot of those themes.
Very straightforward.
Yeah. Weirdly, a lot of those themes, like coming together and working toward a collective goal, my brain automatically goes, oh god, SAO. But, I
mean, it's like, it's kind of like an ironic thing, I guess, in that sense that, like, it's this idea of being awake is not necessarily saying you don't want to conform to something with SAO. Like, my kid very much she doesn't necessarily disagree with SAO's wants.
Yeah.
But she doesn't agree with how they do it. So, like, her big issue is not so much that there is a town of sleepwalking people who are building an instrument in the earth, as much as it is there are a lot of people who were kind of tricked into being these unknowing servants to a voice that still don't know they're doing it. Like, as far as they know, the world is normal, and that's more what she has issue with than the fact that the town is here. If SAO told everyone straight up, hey, at night while you're sleeping, we're just going to use your body, is that cool? And they're like, yeah, go for it. Then she would have no problem with it. She'd be like, hey, you do you, whatever. But because it's not that way, that's why she has issue with it.
Makes perfect sense to me. I
Yeah.
know somebody who wanted to read SAO The Definition of Consent, and I feel like maybe that's your kid here.
I'm so glad you came to my TED Talk. Allow me, Ruffles Papers, to give you some information. I've got some pamphlets. Like, they're like the definition of the prank call.
Oh no!
Let's get some brochures. It's not about making more money. It's about just, learning.
God!
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
I think they just, I struggle to see why SAO is so scared to just be honest with their followers about what's going on. Especially since it's already been alluded to that a lot of the people are here because deep down they're okay with this.
Mm-hmm.
That on a certain level, they're okay with a life with no internet and quiet and conformity and almost like a less sense of identity and stuff like that. The idea of fully fitting in a place. So, like, if they're already kind of preemptively okay with some of that, I feel like you could get enough of a town together to do what you need to do that is fully on board with everything. I think that that's like oversimplifying it as well, because humans are human and they don't know what they want half the time.
Yeah.
But I think that like it would save them a lot of trouble, and they probably wouldn't have a whole group of kids throwing eggs at their people if they were just a little more forthcoming with everybody that's following them. So,
But Liz, it's like the I Dare says, the voices are secrets for some reason.
oh god, it's a secret to everybody.
The reason why is also a secret. Yes.
Yes, of course. I do feel like that we're gonna learn more as time goes on about like why SAO feels the need to handle it this way as opposed to just letting people know, because I feel like that's a very simple solution that people offer kind of from the get-go, and there has to be a reason that they put themselves through all of this drama for their town. I think it goes beyond just, we just want our own space. Like, I think there's, like, a lot more reasoning. Well, I mean, we kind of already know that, because they talk about, like, grooming children.
Yeah.
And, like, DNA and all of that. Like,
yeah.
There is definitely, whether it's just having a self-sustaining town where they never have to worry about dying or whatever the case is, there's definitely, like, more to it that we haven't really discovered yet. And we have those breadcrumbs. We just kind of need to follow them.
Definitely. Oh,
yeah.
Man. That is... Yeah, I do hope we get to explore that. Because that is interesting. I've never thought about it that way. But it makes sense that, like, maybe there's something else going on. And maybe SAO is more than just this weird authoritarian figure that is authoritarian for the hell of it, you know? Like...
Yeah.
There's gotta be something.
Yeah, I definitely think SAO has their reasons. Especially, like, if they do... Like, there's plenty of lucids, it feels. And if they're fully, like... I mean, granted, you can go along the lines of, like, this is what they know, this is how they keep themselves safe, so they, like, go with it and stuff like that. Like, you can provide that narrative for people. But, like, there are people in this town that, like, very much are like, yes, this is right, this is correct. Yes, take away my ability to sleep because I'm going to help get this fixed so that it's right, and stuff like that. So, like, there has to be some redeeming quality to what is happening here. Not just for SAO, but for, like, some of their human followers. Like, there's some justification for these people to be okay with the way the town is being run and to, like, actively try to continue it at the loss of children and families and all of this stuff, because they kick families out of Red Acre too if they don't conform the way they want them to. So it's so culty.
It really is.
Yeah, like, there has to be there has to be an explanation that fits for those. And I think the whole conformity thing and wanting to fit in may be a very strong draw for some of those. But I don't know that it is strong enough for the amount of people that appear to be on board. I don't know. I've never been a person who's been very big on the whole I have to fit into the group sort of thing. So maybe that's why I have trouble conceptualizing it on this scale. But who knows? I mean, yeah, I'm very curious to see, like, what reasonings come up, because I think that there's a stronger argument here for SAO. And I'm kind of curious if the revelation of that will help garner them more followers than they've had.
I wonder too. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
That being said,
eventually,
with all of those, like,
okay.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was gonna
No, you're
say
totally
that
fine. Go.
I think you have a very nuanced view on SAO and whatever the heck is going on in town, and I'm assuming that your kid kind of reflects that. So that being said,
Yeah.
does your kid stalk? Why? Why not?
She does not. Uh, she does not stalk. My kid, my kid has her views on SAO are not as deep as my own, I guess is
Ah.
the way to explain it. Um, she just really hates that they take choice away from people. A lot of her drive of hate of SAO is pretty much what I had already said before about this idea that it's like tricking people into being here and not giving them the actual choice to live their life how they want. If they really wanted to be here and were really helpful for SAO, then they should be okay with knowing that that's what's happening. So she doesn't stalk. I use the stalker mode of this game for another character. And that character is named Maya. And she was just kind of like a fun experiment. I basically took the generic here's what the stalker is story that they present you as an introduction in the game and expanded it from there.
Ooh.
For her, SAO is a super scary voice thing making threats on her family or like saying that her family is in trouble, and as time has gone on she's come to agree with them, and it's gone. She's kind of developed from being scared and doing this because she's scared to doing it because she believes that that's the right thing to do. So I don't really play her in game much, but I like have a blog that I wrote out or started writing out a bunch of her story, which is woefully in need of being updated. But she's very bitter toward the club. She feels that she unfortunately has been put with a bunch of kids on missions that are pretty cocky and in an effort to disassociate with what's happening around them were very mocking and disrespectful, and it just kind of made her mad and bitter, and now she's kind of okay with stalking them and kind of getting them back in the song and teaching them a lesson of sorts.
Oh man, so it was kind of like a slow and slippery slope there.
Yeah, she was terrified, and then she's like, you know what? SAO is right. This is horrible. People need to be back in the song where there is no way that they could be assholes like this. I think my favorite thing that I wrote for her was an introduction to why she started sending pictures to the people that she's stalking, because like it's an in-game mechanic that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah.
In story-wise to me, this idea that if you want to get information for SAO and you want to survive, why would you let them know you're there? It doesn't make sense. And so like I think it was honestly the last thing I wrote on that blog was this idea that she got so mad at what the kids were saying and how they were laughing at the sleepers that they were tranking and stuff like that, that she just really wanted them to know that there's someone there judging them.
Oh.
And so she like timed it in a way that they wouldn't know that she had sent the picture, and she sends the picture with like the I saw what you did text or whatever, and because they'd never experienced that before, she like got almost like a sick glee at seeing like the color drain from their face, seeing that someone was filming them and like judging them for what they were doing with the sleeper bodies, and that kind of like jump started her like not just being okay with stalking them, but like making sure they knew and instilling a fear in them that they were being watched. So
Oh man.
it kind of I just really liked that it kind of like gave a reason for the in-game mechanics that were never really explained. So it seemed fitting, and it just gives her all the more reason to be kind of an ass.
Yeah.
So
That's like a really good kind of disturbing. I think you did awesome there. Oh my
thank
goodness.
you. Yeah, she sees like the color drain from the kid's face, and they're like passing the text around to the group, and they're all like, what the fuck, and then like she just sees it as like justification and like validation for her doing it, because it was like a big risk to do it, and so that it just now it's almost like a game just to see if she can get those pictures to them without getting caught. And as she like gets better at the stalking thing, she can be more and more like risky in the risk that she's taking and stuff like that. So
Wow, that
so
is
it's interesting. I need to get back and write more of it because like I haven't done anything with it in a while, but I just like really liked that like idea.
Oh man,
So
your stalker child sounds like she is kind of troubled and doesn't have many friends. What about like your main
yeah.
kid? Does your main kid have friends? Do they have like
Nah, she's a loner.
she's just a
She
loner.
hates people too. She's super bitter against the club. They're really the same person. Just the stalker wears a wig. No, yeah, I intentionally made my stalker kid in a way that she doesn't have friends, and that was more so because I never planned to play her in the game. So like there was no chance to RP her with other people. I usually stalk on her when the gods aren't out or we don't think they're out, because I don't know how I would interact on that character with SAO. And then my club kid definitely has friends. She has a group that she runs with a lot. Raven, Ren, and Zayden are the ones that she runs with the most.
Aw.
Although story-wise, while she is friends with them, there's a lot of stuff that's happened that has kind of led her to pushing people away. So in the last few months, she's been very much like on her own, kind of like forced isolation sort of thing, while she kind of like struggles with things that she's dealing with. But those three are the three that she runs with the most, but she's also like really close with Leia, and a few other kids and stuff like that. But it's a lot of more along the lines of sharing what they're learning, and kind of like trying to figure out courses of action together and stuff like that. So, but yeah, and then like just friends from school before all of this happened is just kind of the norm. And if they're in the club, they talk about club things. If they're not, they don't. So
Yeah, that's
yeah.
fair. What
Yeah.
led her down this like path of isolation? Like, what events
Oh,
are
God.
impacting her?
I mean, have you been to Red Acre?
Fair. Super fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just kind of like as time has gone on, stuff has like really started to get to her, and like just kind of the burden of stress and like lack of sleep and stuff like that. And so instead of like leaning on her friends as she probably should have, because that's a little bit more healthy, she's just kind of internalized a lot of it. And as she's internalized it, it's kind of built up, and she just like can't bring herself to be open. And so it's a lot of like brooding and like trying to figure out how to get out of this hole she's dug for herself, like emotionally and mentally. And she is just having a hard time getting out of it, essentially. There's been a few times that I've planned out plots with people to kind of like try and like force her to talk to someone. None of those thus far have happened, so she's still kind of in this rut. But I do see her eventually getting out of it, but it has led a lot. Like her way of dealing with it is to internalize it. Kind of comes from like the whole idea of like being independent with her family. This idea that like she went through and she's kind of gotten herself into the mess that she finds herself in, that it's her job to get herself out and not do it in a way that may burden others. So she's struggling to do that at this point.
Well, in that case, how would you describe your kid's personality? Because it seems like the word independent definitely comes to mind.
Oh yeah, no, she's like super. She relies on everyone to do everything for her. So. Like go on that whole tangent and then be like, well, so she can't really leave the house unless someone's with her. And no. Yeah, independence is definitely like she takes great pride in being able to be like kind of that strong person, especially for other people. Like she's okay with being this like rock for people. And it's almost like this idea that if she somehow shows that she doesn't have it together, she's like betraying the people who trust her to be the one to have it together. She definitely loves like telling jokes and stuff like that, and uses humor kind of to like lighten the mood for people. And she is very much about like explaining as much as possible to kind of make things less daunting and scary for people. Like she's very much like that help the others but don't take the help yourself kind of person. But she did it a little bit with the idea of helping people find fragments that want to, and stuff like that. It was just kind of like a get them in and figuring things out and helping people make the choices they need to make, just by giving them the knowledge that they need to make the right decision for themselves. So yeah, like, and she's very, like, she's open about things that are like very like surface level.
Yeah.
When it comes to stuff that she feels is very personal, she kind of like internalizes it a lot. But it's really situational. Like, if she feels like someone really needs information to know what to do to like get themselves out of a rut, she's a little bit more open with the information they may need, but she doesn't tell anyone like everything. So
Oh man.
the information's out there. It's just not all invested in a single person outside of herself. So
That is fair. I guess she's...
yeah.
I don't know how to... I'm getting like...
She's complicated, as all humans are.
Yes, all humans are complicated. I was originally going to say that the impression that she is now giving me is that she is like that tutorial mentor figure, you know what I mean? Like,
oh god, yeah.
Except that worries me because I don't want her to die like tutorial mentor figures do.
Oh my god, so there was a conversation I had on Twitter with a bunch of people, and we were talking about the death of characters. And I've thought a lot about that, like this idea, like there's so much death that's kind of hinted at and seen in this game, and like it's very plausible that your kid may not make it. And,
Yep.
the conversation kind of got into like the idea of, have you ever thought about if your kid died and like how it would happen?
Yeah.
And I went the really like sad, dark route of, I think that she would die, but it would not be this big event. It would just happen and people would move on.
Oh
Like,
no.
it would be, like, not a very significant thing. Like, if you think about it, if you're surrounded by death, and while it's traumatic, eventually desensitization comes in, that you can't, especially when it comes to like having a task or a mission or like a thing that you need to work on, that you can't sit and take time to process everything because there just isn't time. So like there's always this like push for the kids of the club that they have to get this information, they have to get it back, they have to get it. Like as time goes on, it's just more and more important to figure things out, because especially like now that we have like the hunter eating gods,
Yeah.
like, you know, time is ever the enemy. And so like in the beginning, obviously you're going to mourn the death of your friends or of just people in the club that you may not have known them, but you saw them once when you were in the boxcar together, and it's like a wake-up call that someone you may be looking at today is not going to be around tomorrow. And there, as time goes on, like you come to realize like there's not really time to mourn everybody, because you still have to keep going, and just like mentally and emotionally it takes its toll. So it's like a defense mechanism. So like the idea that it would be some big event that your kid would die, I don't think is very realistic. Although I do love the draw of a very dramatic ending. I felt like it almost is, I don't want to say showboaty, because it's not really showboaty, but I felt like hoping that things line up in a way that your kid can have some big heroic death didn't seem to like, it doesn't appeal to me in this setting. Like, I'm a sucker for the sad, dramatic, like sad and like tragic role play stories. So the idea that your dramatic exit is dramatic simply because it's one of many, it's very appealing to me.
Oh man, that's so sad. It's like a milk carton ending.
Yeah, I mean, and that comes at like me stopping playing the game, which I don't see happening anytime soon. So I would not want to start over. I like too much of what's happening with this kid to start over at this point. So it would either have to be when I feel that their story is finally done, or when I'm not playing the game, which then that ending is very fitting, because if I decide I'm not playing the game, I'm not going to log in to do a death scene. It's just not going to be logging in anymore. It's just gone.
Oh man.
They just fell in the throat and died. It's fine.
Oh. game.
know.
We're here for horror.
It's a horror game. It's a horror game.
Oh no.
I mean, it's just one of those things. Like, I think that there's like a lot of aversion to killing off characters in RP because people get very attached to them and they don't want to see the death happen. But it's, I feel like a lot of the times that I have really like fallen for a character and a character's story is when you know that there's an end and that or the end happens, and I end up liking them more because the end happens. I'm very much against neatly tied bowed endings of happiness, so I feel like it's very bold and appealing when authors are willing to kill off characters and have stories that are incomplete or sad at the end and stuff like that. I don't know. I'm a weird and dark person. Mysterious.
I don't think that's that
Brooding
weird.
in the shadows.
Listen, Hunt the Strong.
You have so much death in the game that it makes sense that your kid is likely in the percentage of people that will die. So I just... Doesn't mean I want characters dead. I just am accepting of it being a consequence of action that could happen. So
Yeah, that's super fair, and honestly a super cool perspective. I don't mean to call death cool, but like also I think that I think there's a lot that you can do with it narratively in this game. So reflecting on what it would mean.
In her teeth is there for all of those who are not afraid of death.
Oh man, speaking of in her teeth though, tell me about the voices that your kid follows and why, or if they don't follow a voice, and why they don't follow a voice.
Okay, well, she definitely doesn't officially follow a voice. She's very vocal about not following voices because she is very against the idea of being dependent on them vocally.
Ooh.
Internal is a different struggle, but yeah, she doesn't officially follow any voice. The times that she's been asked, she's very adamant, no, I don't follow any of them. Very much like I am in the Discord, OOCeely.
Yeah.
There's no following of the voices. There's a lot of distrust based on the idea that, of course, the voices are going to do what they can to get you to like them because they are dependent on how many people follow them for their survival. So they're going to say the things that you want to hear. They're going to say the things that you think you want to know just so that you trust them enough to follow them and actively try to help them because that's the only way that it's like a survival thing. So it's the only way that they can live. So she doesn't want that kind of influence, and she doesn't want a voice to be a driving force for herself. She's very much about it has to be me, my choice, and I'm not doing it for other people sort of thing. Unofficially, I would say, like, if she had to make a choice of a god to follow, the Idare would be the one that she would officially... She kind of is already, without putting the label on it. Let's be fair. She's done enough with the guy. If it comes down to what's happening, like, all of her effort has been helping him and just kind of, like, building the relationship that the two of them have. So unofficially, it's just kind of the same. Like, she's chosen, but she doesn't know by who. And she has very adamantly been against trying to be, like, to, one, find out who has chosen her, and two, to actually, like, attempt to be chosen. It's all for the same reasons, whether it's following it. Like, she's very, like, I guess, like, relationship connection oriented. So if she's not willing to follow, she's not willing to, like, be a chosen as well. Like, the back and forth there just isn't something that she feels is genuine, and so she doesn't commit to it.
Fair.
It's a lot.
If that's the case, then what do you think would make your kid ever start following a voice? Like, what would have to be the tipping point? What would have to change?
So there was a conversation that my kid had with the Idare, and it was one where it was not an easy conversation. It was this idea. It was like a fight of sorts. I don't know that it... I feel like it was an argument, not a fight, if you are a person who puts a difference between those two. Mm-hmm. It was more of, like, this is a tough thing that we need to figure out, but they're not, like, trying to actively hurt each other.
Yeah.
In that respect. And it led to a lot of, like, thinking about what it is she's trying to do with the voices, because she's very vocally against following them, and she's very vocally or like she's very much like trying to stop herself from getting connected to any of them. It's like this idea of you don't give a name to an animal because then all of a sudden it's gonna be like really hard to like get rid of that animal. Like you have a connection and you like a bond with them through the name you've given them, sort of thing. So like she very much avoids as much as possible any connections that come with the voices. And I think that part of that is that she very much wants a solid feeling that the voice actually wants to be in whatever relationship, whether it's chosen and follower or just friends or whatever the case is, that they're there because they want to be, not because they need her for survival. Like, this isn't your mooching off of me to survive, that at the end of the day, if there had to be a choice of letting her do her thing to like save herself, they would be okay with it, or if they would try to stop her to keep her there because it helps them. She wants that like confirmation that it's an actual like friendship without strings attached, and she hasn't felt that with any of the gods. So that's why she doesn't. If she were to feel that with one of them, that's when the like serious thinking of, am I a follower now, would come up. But it hasn't yet. So. Yeah. And I don't know what she needs to feel like that's a thing, because I feel like the Idare put up a big fight there for a while for her to feel that way, and she just is like, I can't. I don't understand. So I think it's a very much like heart versus brain argument for her. Like, logically for her, it doesn't make sense that any of the gods would actually care. They're long-living beings. Each human is just a blip on the radar. But then she hears about these stories of, like, the Measure Cut's hiding Gwen to keep her safe from the Eighth, and all this stuff where it's like, why does he care enough to do that with one individual person? So she struggles a lot with just the logic of everything not making sense, but she very much wants to have a connection there as well, and her brain keeps winning out on the argument. So
oh man,
yeah.
I don't know why, but I can just picture your kid like wearing a shirt that reads "No parasites" in very like bold print. No brain parasites, not today.
Out of my brain. I'm my own kid, okay? Well, and it's like an interesting concept too. So the last conversation that I had with the Idare was very heavy on the, do you want to be chosen? Chosen is a thing that has to happen, or you're gonna like go crazy when the time comes for you to host and you don't have. And I realized, and this is like just what I'm planning the next conversation to be, but when I plan conversations, they never end up going the way I want them to. So yeah. I don't know if it will happen. It's not a promise, but I definitely want to try and delve into my kid realizes that if she continuously refuses to be chosen and denies any sort of connection to the gods, that at some point she's going to hit hosting age, whenever that is, and she's essentially setting herself up for failure. There's a clock on her death, essentially, or her sanity, and she's actively like allowing it to be a thing by not allowing herself to be chosen. So it's led to a lot of I guess soul searching of what am I going to do, because right now it's like I'm walking a path and there's a bear trap and I can see it, and if I don't divert my path, I'm just letting myself walk into this trap. And so she very much doesn't want to just, out of spite or rebellion or whatever the case is, actively not do the chosen thing simply because she's putting an end to the opportunity she's been given to like make an impact. So she's going to try and figure out like what exactly you're signing up for, because you can be chosen by multiple gods, so why does it even matter? And what a host is actually like bound to, because if you're saying I want to be the host for this god and you can't get out of it ever again, like that's a really big decision. So yeah, she's not frivolous with her loyalty.
Man.
So yeah, she's in a moment of distress trying to figure out what she's gonna do because this warning from the Idare like really hit hard. So we'll see how that goes with the next conversation.
Yeah, that's so upsetting to have, like, a child that's just like, listen, I don't want any brain parasites, and then for the Idare, like, the god or embodiment of choice or whatever the heck you want to call him, just rolls up like, actually, you have no choice except to
I was
make a
gonna say, like,
choice.
it isn't a choice. Like, the choice is either you die, essentially, because like the way it's kind of presented is that you hear multiple voices and then you go crazy because you're hearing multiple voices, or you do what the pastor did and you kill yourself. Like it's very much you're not yourself either way. Either you are a god's host or you are a crazy person, possibly dead person. Like it's you have to pick the lesser of two evils here. So it's a choice in that you can choose which way you want to go, but it really isn't a choice. It's just kind of makes you feel better thinking that you made the decision yourself, sort of thing. There was a point that the Idare told her that he felt like she would be one that would have multiple voices beyond hosting age, and she kind of held on to this hope that maybe that meant that she didn't have to choose or be chosen. But in this last conversation, he's like, "Yeah, I said that, but it's not going to end well for you."
Yikes.
So I was like, oh, so it's almost like foreshadowing that he's like, yeah, you're pretty stubborn. You're going to step in that bear trap and hope you survive. And I don't think it's going to happen.
Yikes.
So she's trying to figure out what she wants to do, because as much as she doesn't want to be chosen, she doesn't want to know who chose her. She doesn't want the influence of who I follow and who's chosen me to determine decisions she makes. So she's trying to figure out what she can do to make it as less of an ego blow for herself, or a pride blow for herself, to finally give in and pick a god. And given the argument that the Idare in her had, like I said, if she had to choose now, it would probably be the Idare. I don't know if he would take her.
Oh,
So, this idea, because like the argument that they had started over a very unfortunate "I would kill you if the opportunity came up" thing.
Whoa,
which
whoa.
sounds really bad. Yeah.
What happened there?
Oh my god, my kid's a murderer. It's actually kind of funny because as a player, I was kind of taken aback it happened, and I sent the interaction to other people. I was like, am I crazy, or does he seem royally pissed off? I think I fucked up. But it happened with all the symbol stuff with oh god, getting into this story, you have to explain so much. Okay, so there's a symbol, and when he looked at the symbol, it kind of like hurt him a lot, and he like for a while we thought he was forgetting all of his memories and stuff like that, but he described it as a pain he's never felt before. He thinks it was him dying. And my kid, in trying to figure out what caused it and why, he had started talking about how like his own followers were starting to like distance themselves from him, and she had made a comment that it seems weird that maybe whatever it was that happened when he looked at the symbol, if he remembered something, like his followers remembered something, because there was some, I don't remember all the details, but there was some story either he said to her or like he said to someone else and she heard it, that it felt almost like there was a distrust, and that it was almost like he was remembering stuff. I know at some point he was like talking about bells and things like that. So she's like, well, what if your followers remembered something and you didn't? And he was like, oh, that's really troubling to think about. And so like her 200 IQ brain was like, what if we look at the symbol again? And he yeah, it's like, maybe it hurts because you're remembering, you know, maybe you just need to look at it a little longer. But he said, you know, like, what if it kills me? What if that is what it's doing? Is it worth the risk? And my kid said, I don't know. maybe not. Like, Viader is very much he's said several times, and he's stated to her several times, you know, that he thinks that the humans and the gods need to be separated, that we need to be rid of the voices in our heads, And so, like, a lot of her decisions are based on this idea that there may be an end to these voices in our heads, because that's the goal for essentially, almost like, I don't think it's in her teeth's goal. I think she just wants there to be an end for them after whatever time. But for the idea, the one she's helping, he wants there to be a separation. And so for her, the idea of risking a god to see what happens is still meeting the end goal. And even though she does care about the idea and she doesn't want him to be dead, she saw that question as, like, in the end, is it worth the risk of gods being gone?
Oh.
And for her, yes, but she wasn't in that moment like, let's kill you now. Which is what it ended up coming across as.
Oh, no.
And he got very angry, rightfully so, and promptly left. Told her that she needed to think about what she's talking about, and left. So it led to a series of just very tough conversations. And at one point he said in those conversations that for the two of them, the friendship that they have, it can't be the same as it was, which is understandable. She said she was okay maybe killing him just to see if it works or not. Unintentionally so, but she did it. So the idea that is kind of there with, I don't know, honestly. I know a lot of the Idare kids will ask if they can be chosen by the Idare, and then he asks if it's their choice, then yes. And so I don't know if he would say no or not. But I don't know. I haven't thought too much into this portion of it, because it's one of those things that it is really honestly highly dependent on what the Idare says. So I don't know. And I don't know if she'll go the Idare. I haven't thought enough into, as she starts, like, the goal here is for her to start looking into the gods as a whole and what each of them is and represents, and to find out what exactly she's signing up for, and then which god she's comfortable with doing that with. And depending on what she gets back doing that is going to depend on which way it goes. So I don't know if she's even going to ask the Idare in the end. I'm just letting the path naturally lay itself out before me as the player. So it's very complicated.
Sounds like it.
I don't know. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
See, I was gonna ask you about your kid's relationship with whoever their favorite voice is, but I feel like I'm getting a picture. And,
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I'm jumping ahead here. So she really likes the Idare. He's very big on choice. Honestly, like, my kid and the Idare have been through a lot together, just in general. Like, she knew him back when he could speak only in broken sentences and stuff like that. So, like, I do think that at the end of the day, of the gods, he's the one she cares about the most. She just has a hard time acknowledging that to herself and to him and to anyone else asking. I think that she's just very much in denial, and a lot of that is just, like, her own, like, inner narrative trying to not get swallowed whole by this town that is just insane in general. So
it sure is.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it. I very much go with the flow with it, and, like, when I think about it too hard, it gets way too complicated. So.
Super fair. Was the Idare the first voice that your kid spoke to?
I don't remember.
That's super fair.
I honestly don't know. So I think that her first introduction to gods being, like, my first encounter as a player, I think, was through another person's encounter. I don't think I actually had the encounter. I'm pretty sure it was the Idare. And I think that my own personal first encounter was SAO. But that may just be because the first recording I have of a god interaction is SAO. So it's the only one that I have a reference to. But in that recording, it's already kind of established that she's a VI Dare person, not an SAO person.
Huh.
So there had to be interactions before that with the idea that are just not in my memory anymore. That it was such a strong from the beginning from SAO that, oh, no, that's where the Bride of Chaos name came from, because SAO said I was the Bride of Chaos, and we were talking about the chaos that the idea represents and has caused for humanity, so there was definitely a link there already. I just don't remember how it got there.
Oh, man.
I've been playing the game for over a year now, so there's a lot of stuff that I think has just fallen out of my memory from it. It's not a good or a bad thing, I think. It's just makes it convenient later. I don't have to go back to when this game was terrifying for me. With every shadow.
It's like, I don't want to remember jumping. Oh gosh,
Yeah.
that's fair.
I mean, to be fair, there are parts where I'm just like, what the is going on? Like, but back when I didn't know how to play the game in general, so everything was confusing. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think that in character wise, when it comes to like hearing voices, like I think that because she joined an already established club, there's already going to be people talking about the fact that they're hearing voices and like what it is and all of that. So I think that it wouldn't be too shocking for her initially, in the sense of like she would know it's coming. It's like you're sitting at graduation waiting for your turn to walk up and get your diploma. You know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Just a matter of when, and then you just kind of deal with the thoughts and feelings when it's happening, and you're like, just get through it. You knew this was going to happen, sort of thing. I kind of think that's how she took it. Like, okay, the gods it's my turn, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, she would know, and obviously there's these feelings of, why am I hearing or seeing this voice in my head? But this is normal, so you just kind of go with it, sort of thing. So I don't think it was too shocking for her, as much as just kind of a scary experience she knew was coming.
Just, wow, I can't believe the universe says it's
Simplest
my turn on the
answer
brain.
ever.
No, I was just gonna say that, like, her reaction seems like just her groaning and being like, I guess the universe says it's my turn on the brain worm.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not that. It's just one of those things, like, it's like a rite of passage. Like, you know it's gonna happen. It's just a matter of when, and then when it does, you handle it how it comes at you, sort of thing. Like, maybe I'm saying it where it sounds like she was super chill about it. It's still gonna be like a jarring experience. I'm also like very on the fence of how much I feel that the kids wouldn't already kind of have a preconceived notion of what that is. I feel like voices in your head, especially growing up in Red Acre, would be a more common occurrence. Like, you have the stories from the Sleepers where they're talking about how, oh, he thought the voice was his own, but it's not. It's this other god. Or, hey, this voice has been talking to you since you were an infant. So
Oof.
I almost wonder if it's just kind of a realization that the voice that you were talking to is actually another entity. It's not your own, and it's not your own thoughts. It's this other thing talking to you. So you're like waiting and waiting in anticipation for hearing this voice that all the other kids are talking about, and you realize that the voice you're hearing is familiar to you.
Ooh.
and stuff like that, or like a voice you hear in a dream, and suddenly you're not really dreaming, so it's now a real thing, sort of thing. I more lean toward that. It's just a lot easier to explain in character wise that she's cool with it. Like, whatever. My turn.
Okay, that makes sense.
Just, yeah.
It does make
I think there's a lot that gets lost in time playing the game, of like these little things of what's normal and what's not. Because like for Red Acre, no internet is normal. Like, you can't really miss too much of what you didn't already have. So like, as a kid who grew up in Red Acre, she's not going to miss the internet. She's never had it.
Yeah.
Like, she may understand what it is and what it could do for her, but she's never experienced it. So can you really miss it? And like stuff like that. Like, I think a lot of that gets lost. I think that the world that's built in this game, like, voices talking to you is a normal thing, whether you're conscious of the fact it's happening or not. So it's just a matter of what the reaction is when you consciously realize, oh god, that's something else in my head, not me. So I don't know. And I don't have any concept of real life experience to know what that would be like. So
I mean, probably jarring, uncomfortable, and undesirable, but it's fine. Horror game.
I mean, like, one of my favorite things about this world, because I really enjoy the world of this game, is like figuring out some of the things that are super commonplace in the game, like what it would actually like translate to if it wasn't limited by the fact that it's a game. So like this idea that when you go and you put up your flashlight and you close your eyes, you see a shadow of a figure and it kind of like brightens and goes out. And like, do you feel that? Because you're internalizing a piece of a name fragment for a god. So like, is it warm? Does it like shoot like electricity through you? Like, I think that some of the SAO kids, they talk about when SAO takes the name fragments, it's like a burning sensation. So it's not a pleasant experience to give these name fragments over. So like, I kind of feel like it wouldn't be a pleasant experience internalizing them either. It's like, you're basically like kind of giving this weird foreign thing a space to exist, and I highly doubt that your body's going to be happy about that, and that's going to translate into some sort of sensation that's probably not pleasant. I don't know about necessarily painful, but maybe just like disconcerting, like when your foot's asleep and you really don't want it to be and stuff like that. So like finding ways to kind of like real worlds be limited but very common things of the game is like super interesting and fun to me. RP gives you a way to do that if you're writing the RP out and not like actually just acting it out in game. So
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that it's a lot easier to like conceptualize all of those feelings that the character might be going through when you're writing it out, as opposed to like when you have to react on the fly. Like,
improv is a skill.
Improv.
Have it.
That's okay. We're not paid to do improv. We're not paid at all. We're here.
What are you talking about? I get snacks every time I finish a mission.
Liz is balling in Snickers bars.
Yeah. Most of my RP experience is written RP, so I had to kind of learn that I don't have an unlimited amount of space to explain feelings and thoughts and reactions. Like, it's something you kind of have to find a verbal way of doing. It's taking a book and turning it into a movie. Like, you can't put everything in the book in the movie because they're two completely different mediums. One is like imaginative and the other one is like you have to place it in front of the audience and explain it visually and stuff like that. So like, it's been a very big learning this game has been an RP learning experience for me. I've done improv and stuff in the past, but it's been so long that I just don't have the talent anymore. So like voice gods talking to me, I'm like, you're talking. As opposed to like being able to, and I mean, it's kind of like that with the text ones too, but now that I've had enough, I've been playing over a year, I've had enough like consistent experience over that year to be able to kind of like not panic as much when I have a text god. I feel like there's more of a delay allowed with them as well, so it's a little bit easier. And then just making a blog and writing. I'm in the process of trying to rewrite all of my encounters as stories so that I can add in the thoughts and feelings that my kid is going through to explain like answers and like what happened in them in a way that I'm more comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It also lets me nicely edit out all of the mistakes that don't mean anything and are wrong.
That is fair.
Oh, I missed what the god meant there. I'm just gonna pretend that my kid did that on purpose, or just not mention it at all. We'll just not mention it. It's fine.
Mistakes? Being a human being that doesn't perceive things like exactly all the time? No.
Reading comprehension? What?
Sounds fake.
Which is great after saying that I do written RP. I don't know how to read. It's fine.
It's fine. Oh man.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's definitely like it's like getting used to being able to kind of like I have characters in written RP that you could throw anything at me and I would be able to very quickly give you a response of how they would react and why and what they would be thinking and all of that. And it's just a matter of like getting used to doing that verbally. Like knowing enough about a character that you know how they're going to react and answer to something, whatever it is that gets thrown at you. So
It's a,
interesting and it takes practice.
it sounds like a time, but like not a bad time.
Yeah. No, I honestly think like all of the challenges that have come up for me roleplay wise in this game are just really good growing experiences. I'm so used to what I've been doing the last like 20 years role playing that this is a good shakeup. Uh,
Yeah.
and in a space that kind of allows you to be new and fumble and just kind of figure it out, and it's not detrimental to you, and it is just kind of expected. So like it just makes it easier all around.
Yeah, that is true. It's a fairly nice environment to, like, get your feet wet with a different kind of roleplay style. It's nice. But
Yeah,
speaking of
exactly.
challenges, though, you should
Oh
tell me.
no.
You should tell me about your kid's relationship with their least favorite voice. Who is it?
Oh, I mean, we kind of did that already with Speak as One.
Oh,
The
you're.
idea
Oh, it
that,
is SAO. Okay.
yeah, I mean, so I do think that if SAO was able to kind of give my kid a little bit of leeway, I go back and I listen to the encounters that I've had with SAO, and I was like, wow, I'm a snarky asshole.
Oh
Because it's one of those things, like, in the moment, I don't really feel like I'm being snarky or, like, I guess, like a teenager in a sense, in, like, rebuttals and all of that. Like, I think that my kid has a genuine interest in trying to understand SAO because I think that she also believes that the more you can understand them, the better tools you will have to kind of fight against them, if that makes sense. Like she sees this, if you understand why they chose to have people that don't know what's happening, you can then try and convince them why there's a better way to get what they want without doing that, and stuff like that. And so she feels in the moment that she's giving them the attempt and the ability to kind of like explain to her themselves, but they're just not entertaining that idea, and it's frustrating for her and she hates it, and then they end up getting nowhere.
no!
And then I go back and listen, I'm like, oh well, I was kind of taunting them saying sleep is for the weak. Shit like that. So it's one of those. They just really don't see eye to eye, and neither is willing to give the other a full opportunity to explain themselves. So they're kind of at a standstill relationship wise.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
Yeah.
very productive for like a good relationship. So that makes sense. It makes sense that that is
Yeah,
her least favorite.
yeah, it's honestly a good thing that they don't come to her often because it just never ends well.
Bride of chaos. God.
Bride of chaos.
She's Louise.
I don't think that they expected me to be like, you know what, I really like that name. Thanks for giving it to me. You're amazing.
Probably
She like threw it back in their face.
That's so funny.
She just
Oh man.
It's like a lack of respect. That's all it is. It's fine. Everything is fine.
It's a very funny lack of respect.
She's like, I'm trying to give you a chance here. Just fucking take the joke already.
It's like, why don't you have a sense of humor, hive mind?
Right?
Does your
I'm sorry, this isn't gonna work. If you can't laugh with me, then I can't be here.
Well, speaking of laughs, does your kid have any
Yeah.
other notable voice relationships? Wink,
Definitely
wink, nudge,
not.
nudge.
I'm gonna pretend like you don't already know.
That's fair.
When it comes to the other gods, so the most obvious one that we're joking about right now is Laugh Last, who is probably the second most spoken to god for my kid. It's been hinted by the Adair from pretty early on that Laugh Last may be a good fit for my kid, just because I am a natural jokester and I'm not afraid to joke about things in dark situations. It's just kind of that whole everything is, as long as you laugh at the end, it's okay sort of things. Obviously within reason, but like she very much is like, if things get too dark, have a joke just to have a moment to like collect yourself and then get back into the serious sort of thing. So all of my sacrifices that my kid does is to laugh last. The OOC reason is that in the beta, I like to laugh last's quote, and so I just started sending all my sacrifices to him. I did it based not knowing anything about the god really, and then just ideally it does fit in this idea that myself as a person, and then by proxy my child, my
Yeah.
kid is they use joking as like a defense mechanism. Like they very much like it's a way to kind of seem like you don't care when you really do. It's a way to kind of break up the tension. It can help people kind of get out of whatever funk they may be in, because if you start looking, it's like a way of looking at silver lining in some respects and stuff like that. So it makes sense in that way. The only reason that she has not pushed to follow or be chosen by Laugh Last is that she is very on the fence about whether or not her idea of humor matches his.
Ooh.
For her, he is very kind of, I want to, like, the easiest way to say it is mean-spirited. She's heard a lot of kids talking about the jokes that he makes essentially at the expense of other followers or other gods. And while she's okay with there being jokes about other people, it's if those people are included in the joke, not like laugh with them, not laugh at them. And so she's not on board with the whole like pushing people away by making fun of them sort of approach. And she also doesn't like that Laugh Last presents himself in a way that he just really doesn't care. She really does care, and you can be humorous and feel good about yourself and present yourself in a way that's appealing to people without it being about not caring. So she's very back and forth with him about it. He's most recently started like showing that he kind of does care, and I think that she's starting to understand more the humor that he uses to put up a front. And so he's on the table of possible people to ask to be chosen for, but she's not leaning more toward him than the idea at this point. As far as other gods, my kid and Leia's kid are really good friends, so Dance for Us was one that, even though she never was like directly involved with Dance for Us, she knew Leia was really close with Dance for Us, and she has other friends who were, so she was kind of one of those like cheerleaders on the sideline sort of thing, like, yeah, Dance for Us is a badass, this is amazing, but she never really like invested personally in the god. She was sacrificing to In Her Teeth for a while, mostly because out of character I found In Her Teeth very interesting, but that kind of fell off when I went to Laugh Last.
Oof.
And she does have interest in the other. TMC, she thought would be a good source of information, but she's not very keen on the idea of feeling the more knowledge you have, the more above everybody you are, and that's how he kind of comes across to her as. And Die For You, she is kind of indifferent towards. She doesn't really have an opinion of him. She thinks that like what he represents is kind of a fleeting thing and it doesn't really help anybody. It's like that idea that if you fall in love with someone and then you go to war and they know who you love, it's kind of like a weakness sort of thing. So very boldenly in war saying I would die for this person is setting yourself up to be taken advantage of and killed. So and then who else is there? Seed the Grudge. Seed the Grudge was the first voice that I had an interaction with as a player that came for me and not someone else in the match. And she came when I knew absolutely nothing about her and had no preparation for questions or anything.
Oh my goodness.
And she asked my kid to help. I believe that the plot that was likely tied to is over and like kind of tied up and everything. But she still has an interest as to why she would come and ask, because they don't know each other at all. And then the hunter, my kid wants nothing to do with, so that's easy.
I'm starting to see a pattern where your kid is just like, what if we were all nice and got along? What if we weren't jerks?
What if this wasn't a war?
Yeah.
What if it wasn't that for centuries you all have been trying to kill each other? How about we try not killing each other for a few centuries?
Pretty much. It's like, come on, guys, just have a conversation.
I do think she has like a very realistic idea of what is happening here. Like, this is a war. It's not necessarily a war that is caused by humans, but it kind of is in the way, since the gods are a reflection of humans. She doesn't know, she knows she's in over her head, essentially. So it's just like, well, I guess I can know what my values are and just follow those and hope that I make it out with some sort of dent of an influence on the club or Redacre, the world, or whatever. But she very much knows that. She's in over her head, and she just kind of has to deal with how she deals with it.
Yeah, yeah. There's just so many emotions, man. I'm not good at articulating this.
I'm sorry. Yeah, like, most of my RP characters are very internal thinkers, and they, like, overthink and analyze everything. A lot of my favorite characters that I've ever played in RP, like, the kid that I'm playing in the Blackout Club is not the type of character I would make in this setting. Like, that was one of the challenges of, like, oh, I've been playing as myself playing a game. Well, now this kid is very much like me, and I don't feel like me myself as a person would last very well in in this setting. Most of the characters I play in these kind of like end of times, war-driven narratives are more brooding, and like they do the internalization thing, but they're a lot better at handling it emotionally. And they're very much a you survive for you, and everyone else is, unless they can hold their weight, they're like dead weight. So
Ooh.
I'm trying not to go that route. Like, I don't want to turn my kid into that, which is why I very much need to get her out of this whole like internalization, isolation thing that she's in right now. But she, we'll see what happens. I don't know. I'm trying not to go that route. I want it to be a challenge to play a kid that can make jokes and be there for people in this setting, because it's very much not a common thing that I play in this sort of story. And we'll see. I don't know if I'm doing a good job or not, but we're just gonna go with it.
Oh, I'm sure you're doing fine. You're fine. There's no, like, easy segue into this, so I'm just gonna completely change the topic.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay!
I can go on tangents forever about this stuff.
It's okay, I think it's really interesting. So how does your kid feel about the unknown caller? Are they actually impacted by them at all?
Oh, God.
Do they,
Oh, God.
Oh, no!
Oh, my God. Okay, so, unknown caller. Let's see. We're going to start with the unknown caller, who was not here very long, but made an incredibly big impact on my kid.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. So, unknown caller, just the idea that there's an adult that doesn't have a god, one, gives hope that you don't have to be chosen or a host. Two, kind of played into her, like, my kid's skepticism really well, like, from the get-go. So there was someone who could help validate this conflict that she's been having with trust with the gods when everyone else around her is very on board with them. So she very much wanted to get to know and meet the unknown caller. And so there was a lot of back and forth about whether or not... So, like, the unknown caller was known to stop talking to people if they follow gods. My kid doesn't officially follow a god, so she didn't have to lie about that. But she was very much playing it where she didn't let the Idare know that she was talking to the unknown caller, and she didn't let the unknown caller know that she was talking to the Idare. And she kind of was trying to not necessarily play both sides as much as give both a chance, and then with the intent to make a decision of who to go with at the end. So she was like entertaining both of them in that moment of like, how is the Idare reacting? This kind of came along with the whole arguing and distrust that started forming between the Idare and her. So it was a little bit easier for her to like keep the Idare at an arm's length and focus on unknown caller for a little bit. But the plan was to see what the deal was with both of them and make a decision from there who she would go with. And she was waiting for a text from unknown caller, and the plan was, one, to see if unknown caller was dead skeptic, because that was a big kind of theory in the community. And my kid also has a whole like singular knowledge of dead skeptic from a previous talks with the Idare. So she was going to try to find a creative way based on what she knew from what the Adair told her to see if UC was dead skeptic. My favorite one that I was going to ask, but was way too obvious to actually do, was, do you believe in ghosts, or would you say you're skeptical?
No!
And get a yes or a no from there. And to see, I think another one was like, do you have knowledge of how to build a cell tower? Because the last time my kid had talked to the Adair, he had mentioned that Dead Skeptic made her own cell tower, and that's how they were talking.
Oh.
And stuff like that. So like that kind of knowledge that my kid hasn't shared, so it's not really something I could push on someone else to ask, to kind of like, without outright saying I'm dead skeptic, could kind of confirm that it was. And then she was going to ask if UC was okay with just leaving town, and if she could go with her, which
Aww.
mechanically, game-wise, couldn't happen. I was more curious what the answer would be than thinking it would be a thing that could happen. But my kid was ready to just take what she could, evidence-wise. The idea being that there's no way to really help from the inside. So if you have a way of getting out, we need to get out while we can, and then we can help from the outside. But Unknown Caller died before my kid got to talk to her again. So none of that happened. And now my kid is kind of in limbo, because she very much wanted that connection and found comfort in the idea that there was an adult that didn't have a god in their head. And it all disappeared when the Death Switch text went out, which my kid did not get one. And so she's upset about that too, because now it's a one-sided connection with this character as opposed to a mutual one. Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
Now she's really upset about the whole people getting texts again, because that's just opened a whole other can of worms, because she was still dealing with the idea that based on what all happened, the one hope is now dead, and now suddenly it's like resurrected, and she doesn't know how to handle that. So
yeah, that's really upsetting that there's no closure. Don't like that.
yeah,
I hope that the closure doesn't come below.
Remember my like no neat little bow thing? Like honestly, that the whole Death Switch thing with UC, the reason I was like, oh god, UC, is because like as a player, for me, the death of UC was like horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I actually took a break from the game.
Oh no.
I was like, god damn it. Because I really loved the story that I had playing out, where it didn't matter if I had the enhanced horror interactions or not. For my kid, it was great development-wise, because she suddenly had this hope. It gave her something else to kind of ponder, and it gave her a path that wasn't there before. And then it was gone.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no, this poor kid. And on top of that, the idea that it might be Dead Skeptic, who was the other hope that was out there. So if they're the same person, this, even though my kid initially told the idea that Dead Skeptic should not come to Red Acre, and that they should stay beyond the borders and try to help from the outside, the story that was kind of set up was that Dead Skeptic was coming anyway. It didn't matter. She wanted to come to Red Acre. She was going to. So that's part of why people think Unknown Caller was Dead Skeptic. So the idea that, one, this person who was in Red Acre is now gone. The idea that the only other hope may have been that one person is now also gone. Like, it just like cut off this whole like path that my kid was excited to kind of go down, because it gave her a place to go that felt comfortable. So we shall see if Dead Skeptic was Unknown Caller or not. I don't know if I want them to be or not, because it'd be really, like, as a person who likes those darker and like dreary stories, it fits perfectly to have Dead Skeptic be Unknown Caller. I hate it as much as I love it. But I feel like, I mean, it says a lot about this story that I have that much of a connection to a character that's barely been in it. I was like, I don't want to play the game, they're dead!
Oh. Speaking of maybe dead characters that we've never met, how does your kid feel about Bells? Did they know her?
Oh,
Do they care?
So, I don't know, actually. I've never really explored what the relationship would be. with my kid and Bells. I've kind of avoided it just because Bells is such a big main character. Um, I feel like they may have known each other, but not necessarily were friends. I think that's like the safest route to go.
Yeah.
But I don't have any like headcanons of like they were science project partners and they like hung out on Saturdays to do this project or anything like that. There is a connection through Ren, who is a friend of mine, and her kid knew Bells and is very, very adamant about finding Bells. So there is a connection there in that regard. Like it's important to her friends, so it's important to her. But as far as how much she knew Bells or not, I don't really have like a set in stone thing. That's one of those, we'll just leave it there, and when it becomes important, we'll decide in the moment how important it is, sort of things.
That's super fair.
Yeah, there's enough missing kids in Red Acre that I think it's okay for her not to be super attached to one just because it's the intro to the story.
That's fair. That is
Yeah.
really fair. I would ask about your kid's most important non-voice relationship, but it's sounding like it was unknown caller. How did it shape
I
them?
mean, when it comes to not enhanced horror, I would say probably her friends, just any of them. She, I don't know, she's not like super reliant on anybody at this point. But I do think that she holds her friends in a very high regard, and that's part of why she kind of like has been pushing them away when she's been struggling with her thoughts, because she doesn't want to burden them and make it more stressful for them, because as friends they're going to step up and try and help. And so I think that she recognizes that it's important to have allies, and I think she holds human allies over god allies for sure. So they're influencing her in the way that she does make decisions to make sure that it's as helpful to them as possible, and like lessens their burden as much as possible. It's probably the biggest influence at that. She's very focused on what's happening in Red Acre and the war and stuff like that. So a lot of her like mental energy goes into doing things that are kind of influenced around what's happening.
Makes sense to me.
Yay!
You talk a lot about...
I'm glad, because I got halfway through that sentence and went, what am I trying to say? Am I repeating myself?
No, you're fine.
Yay!
It sounds like your kid really wants to help. I kind of want to know what your kid, like, cares about the most. Is it being helpful to others? Is it, like, what is her goal
honestly,
here?
the thing that drives her the most is just to get Red Acre into a place where people have the choice to do what they want to do. Like, I think that all the things that she worries about ultimately rely on that happening. Like, her friends can be happy staying in Red Acre with the gods, with a god in their head if they want, but they should have the choice to do that. The idea that the town is shut down, no one can get in or out, is like a huge hitting point for her at this point, because that is almost like a visual representation of the hold. That it's the cage, like the border is the cage, and getting that cage open and allowing whatever it is to get out or come in happen is the ultimate goal, because everything else falls into place after that happens. So her driving force right now is getting those borders open so that the next part of whatever is to come can happen. She me as a person outside of the game has already run through the scenario of, we already know there's other gods outside of Red Acre, so like who knows what bear is waiting on the other side for the people of this town. Can you imagine going through all of this stuff as a kid in Red Acre, and you're like, yes, we finally did it, we got out, and then you realize not only are the gods that you knew in Red Acre also outside of Red Acre influencing people, but there's a bunch of other ones as well that you know nothing about, and the ones that you knew in Red Acre are not exactly the same as the ones of the same name outside. Like, it would just be like this big, like, jumping out of the frying pan and into the fire situation.
Yeah.
My kid doesn't have any inkling of that at this point. She's not thinking that broadly, but like for me as a player, I'm like, oh, you sweet poor child.
Oh
You're like, all we
no.
gotta do is get the borders open. Not realizing that you may just be making the worst mistake of your life.
Oh
Like,
no.
what if the entire point of Red Acre is literally to keep people safe, and the SAO is the savior because they keep things out and they keep you here, and that's why they don't let you know, because part of your happiness is not knowing that the world is a horrible place. Like, we
Oh
kids are like, fuck you, dude. Everyone deserves to be unhappy.
Oh no, the irony. That's terrible.
Right? I really want that to be the thing, but that's me. I'm a crazy person when it comes to stories. Oh my god.
Liz in the corner like, let me be sad, upset, and overwhelmed at the same time by
Please, let me hit rock bottom of my own turn.
Oh,
I'm
no.
really bad. So, like, RP-wise, like, as a role player, I am about bringing my characters through hell and hope they make it out on the other side. But it's one of the, like, I think it's more interesting to have as much conflict and, like, self-exploration as possible, and the easiest way to do that with a character is to put them through hell. So, like, let her have the emotional turmoil and the mental trauma and just go with it. Like, yeah, I mean, there's so much in this set. Like, if you really sit and think about what these kids are living through, it's fucking traumatic. Like,
Yeah.
I think that you can't really, like, focus on it all the time, but it's good to remind yourself that this is fucking depressing shit that's happening.
Yeah, none of this
It's not
is
all
okay.
about drawing out things about not killing them because they're your parents.
Yeah.
It's really serious shit. These kids are just doing what they can with what they have. So
The struggle is very real in Red Acre, and it's not normal, and it's also awful. Like,
it's amazing and awful at the same time.
yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've like gone through different scenarios of what couldn't happen and all of that. Like, the way I prepare for, like, chats and stuff for these, like, improv moments with gods is, here's 8 different scenarios of the way the conversation can go, so I can at least feel somewhat prepared when it happens.
Oh no.
But that's how I RP too. Like, I like exploring the different ways the story can go, and then I just let it naturally go whichever of those ways it goes. I don't try to push the story in a specific direction. So, like, I never would have thought that my kid would get in an argument with the idea that spans, like, 3 different encounters of, like, just emotional turmoil of what she's doing, because the idea that the idea was pissed and wasn't talking to her and may cut her off was so traumatic for her, and she didn't realize. It's like where she realized just how attached she was to talking to the idea, and it's really started, like, the gears turning of, okay, like, where am I at? Are my goals the same? This goes against where I thought I was, and, like, repositioning herself mentally for where she is in, like, what she thinks she's doing and stuff like that. So I was very happy that it was a plot that was given to me, and that I was trusted not to get, like, super offended by it. Like, I feel like that it might be tough for some to have a god angry at them, but I fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Which sounds really bad. Yes, hate me. I don't know. I like that kind of drama. The idea that it's not always sunshine and rainbows, and that friendships can be hard and stuff like that. It's interesting, and I'm really glad this game goes into those paths. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of everything not being sunshine and rainbows, what does your kid want for the
Yeah.
future beyond Red Acre?
She has no fucking clue.
That's fair. That's really fair, because
There's
she's
so much going on
14.
in Red Acre. Well, not just that, but, like, at this point, like, you can dream about what you want outside of Red Acre, but you don't really know what's out there. Like, she grew up in Red Acre. Acre. So there's a whole world that's a bit, the way I kind of picture Red Acre is like it's the 90s, even though like year wise it's not. So like you're gonna go out there to technology you've never seen or experienced before. It's like stepping out of a time warp sort of thing. But she at this point is so focused on just making it so that the future is an option, and it's an option for her to have a choice in what her future is, that she's not focused on what those choices will be. She just wants to have the ability to make them. So she's this is why she's stuck in this hole. Like she can't think about fucking anything but this war.
Yeah. I mean, when
This
you're
poor baby
surrounded
has
by it.
no dreams. She just living in the moment.
Oh man. I can feel the LL mentality. Just gotta survive. Smiley face.
Drunk.
No,
Sleep for months. It's fine.
Not quite like that.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, like,
yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't seem. Well, that's not true. That gets into a complicated does LL have greater plans kind of thing, but, like, it seems he, like, at least puts up the front of living day to day and trying not to care too much. And your kid at least puts up the front of doing that too, even though she's, like. Even though there's, like, a lot going on, you know?
Yeah. I think with Laugh Last that, like, there's a lot of different things. When it comes to talking about, like, Laugh Last and Be I Dare, I see Laugh Last kind of like that little brother that really, really wants to hang out with his big brother, and his big brother's like, oh god, you again? Like, don't follow me around, you're, like, holding me back sort of thing. And I feel like their whole dynamic kind of, like, echoes that, like, this idea that he just really wants to be buddies with his brother, and his brother's too busy doing his own thing to care about whether he's there or not. And I think it kind of led him down this path of, like, making it appear he doesn't care because he doesn't want people to know it affects him as much as it does.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, a lot of his responses, like, I don't care, I'm out for me, I'm the best, like, those are just really classic stereotypical I don't want you to know just how much it all affects me sort of, like, masks to put on.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that, and I think especially recently, and you kind of see it a lot when people talk about their encounters with, like, Laugh Last in, like, the recent months, that, like, it's starting to take its toll where he realized that by doing that, no one is really, like, no one cares then where he's at. They just kind of go and do their thing with the other people. So, like, he's not getting the attention he wants as that brooding younger brother who just wants someone to pay attention to him. But also, like, this idea that because he's getting looked over, he's losing opportunities to try and help how he can. It's like a common issue with comedians too, like the idea that because you break jokes, you're not taking it seriously, but in reality, like, joking around doesn't actually represent what you feel. Like, you hear, like, comedians in the real world talk about the fact that because they're a comedian, they say something and everyone assumes it's a joke, even if it's not. So, like, you may not even have a punchline, you're stating an opinion. They're like, good one. Like, they just don't, like, take you seriously because you're a comedian. And I think that LL suffers from that a lot because he sits and makes fart and butt jokes and stuff like that. And so, like, if he even says anything remotely serious, people are like, either something's wrong with him and he's depressed, or it's just him joking and they don't know if it's, like, to take it seriously or not. He perpetuates it a little bit, like when he told someone that maybe he just wanted to keep them guessing.
Oh.
But that's also, like, a cover-up of, I don't want you to know how much I care. So I'm telling you the thing that's true. Ooh, this just got really serious. Just kidding, I'm trolling. You don't know if it was a joke or not. Like, it's a way of covering that up. Like, he just can't be serious because it shows too much, sort of thing. I don't know. I have an overly complicated, like, view of Laugh Last.
Do you think that reflects on your kid at all? Like, do you think that she's misunderstood in that way, or do you think that she's more straightforward about caring?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really obvious that she cares. my last chat with Laugh Last, she basically told him that, like, I do care and I do have things that I want to do, and it doesn't seem like you care enough to be able to help me accomplish those things. Um like, she's all about laughing and having a joke and using humor as either a defense or a weapon, but at the end of the day, it's not at the expense of caring what's happening. And I don't think she's ever used humor as a way to cover up how much she cares about something. She uses it to break tension or to try and not go to such a dark place that she feels like she's not going to get out of it and stuff like that. Like, there's definitely jokes that were cracked in Talking to the I Dare during very tense moments, because it was easier to crack a joke and like try to get a laugh out of it to stop from like really seriously like falling into how serious and dark the situation was. So, but it was never a I don't care, ha ha ha, let's make a joke of this. It was just I need a moment to laugh sort of thing.
Yeah. So, let's say the sonic fence goes down tomorrow. Is there anything that's keeping your kid in Redacre besides that fence?
She is beelining for that fucking town.
Mood! There she goes!
There, she's just gone. Fucking like Roadrunner.
You'll never see her again.
Sorry, I should let you finish the question.
No, you're fine. That's it. That's really all I needed to know there.
She was ready to ask Unknown Caller to leave, like, and it wasn't about like it was one of those things that I knew in asking that and saying that my kid was willing to leave with no one but Unknown Caller. Like, it wasn't about let me get my friends and we all can leave or anything like that. It was let's get in the car and go. And I knew with that sort of a decision, it could be a very like I guess like drama causing decision, because like it leaves this sort of like tension of why didn't you take us with you? You know, we're trying to get out too, or why would you take the one person who has information that might help us, and stuff like that. But for my kid, it wasn't necessarily about I need to get out and no one else, as much as this is the opportunity and the most percentage of a way, like most chance of it being successful is it not being a car full of kids, it being two people that have as much stuff as possible to prove that something's happening, get out and go. Like, whether it was her herself or someone else going with Unknown Caller didn't matter. But because she wasn't telling anyone that she was talking to Unknown Caller, her opportunity was it had to be her. So she's willing to go. She's going to be out the door. Whether she decides she wants to come back or not is going to be left to whatever the world is like out there. But yeah, if she had the opportunity to leave, she'd be gone. She would leave. I don't know if she would stay gone. I don't know if she would have a plan or if she would just see the border, run, and then make a decision from there. But she definitely would take the opportunity once it was there to just get out.
That is super fair. Redacre is a disaster.
She is that rat abandoning ship.
There
it's
she
going
goes.
down, and I am not going with it.
All right. Well, we have gotten through all of the questions in one way or another. Yay! Yay! Jazz hands. That was really fun and insightful. Okay, I'm gonna go make some pasta because I'm hungry. But this was really nice. Thank you so much for this.
It was fun.
Yay!
Yeah. Thank you for letting me come and rant and rave about my kid for however long.
Heck yeah! I hope you had fun too. I'm gonna sign off now.
Fun.
Cool.
Okay.
Peace.